All right, today we're going to take a tour of what might just be the most important and tiniest factory on the entire planet. Seriously, have you ever just stopped and looked at a plant and thought, how does that thing eat? I mean, there's no mouth, right? So where does its food actually come from? Well, the answer is inside this absolute marvel of microscopic engineering, the chloroplast. Think of it as the engine, the power station, and the food factory all rolled into one for, the entire plant world. Okay, so where can we find these little green machines? To find our factory, we're going to have to zoom in, and I mean way in. So, our journey starts with the stuff we can actually see with our own eyes. These factories, they're packed into the green parts of the plant, especially the leaves. The leaves are basically just giant solar collectors. Okay, let's get a bit closer. If you could magnify the surface of a leaf, you'd see millions of tiny, organized cells. We're talking something like 500,000 cells in a space just 1 square millimeter. It's wild. And there they are, tucked inside every single one of those plant cells. You'll find dozens, sometimes even hundreds of these little food factories. These are the chloroplasts, and they are just buzzing with activity. All right, so we found the factory. Now let's get our security badges and take a look inside. What exactly does the blueprint for this green machine look like? So the first thing you'd notice is the security system. I mean, any good factory needs a solid perimeter, right? Well, the chloroplast has a double membrane. Think of it as an outer wall and an inner wall. And they are super careful about controlling everything that goes in and out. Okay, once we're past security, we step onto this wide-open fluid-filled space. This is called the stroma. You can just think of this as the main factory floor. This is where the final assembly is going to happen. And this factory floor is seriously well-equipped. You've got enzymes, which are kind of like these super specialized robotic arms and tools. It even has its own DNA, a unique set of blueprints just for its own maintenance and repairs. And get this, it has ribosomes, which are basically on-site 3D printers that can build any new parts the factory might need. How cool is that? So, floating around on this factory floor, you'll see these incredible little structures that look just like stacks of green coins. Each individual coin is called thylakoid, and a whole stack of them is a grana. These are the factory's main assembly lines. So why are they green? Well, that's because of a pigment called chlorophyll. It lines the surface of these thylakoids, and it acts just like a network of super efficient solar panels, capturing energy from sunlight to power the whole operation. Okay, so we've toured the facility, we've seen the assembly lines, we know where the power comes from. Now let's see this thing in action. It is time to power up the factory. So this whole food-making process, photosynthesis, it's really broken down into 2 main stages. You got the light reaction and the dark reaction. Now, they happen in different parts of our little factory, but they work together like a perfectly coordinated team. First up is the light reaction. This all goes down on those thylakoid assembly lines we saw. And just like the name says, it's powered directly by sunlight. Its main job? To create these portable, rechargeable energy packs. These are molecules called ATP and NADPH. Just think of them as tiny little batteries that are going to carry the sun's energy over to the next stage of the process. All right, our little energy packs are fully charged up. So now we're moving off the thylakoid assembly line and back onto the main factory floor, the stroma, for the final assembly. This next stage is the dark reaction, which you might also hear called the Calvin cycle. Now, it's called dark, not because it has to happen in the dark, but because it doesn't need sunlight directly. Instead, it caches in the energy from those ATP and NADPH battery packs to assemble the final product, a sugar molecule called glucose. And that, right there, is the plant's food. And that's pretty much the whole process, from sunlight all the way to sugar. So let's just boil this all down to the absolute key takeaway. If you remember one thing, remember this. The light reaction happens in the thylakoid, the dark reaction happens in the stroma. Light in the thylakoid, dark in the stroma. That's it. That's the fundamental map of how photosynthesis works. So why should you even care about this? Well, because this incredible, elegant process happening inside this tiny little factory is what makes pretty much all life on Earth possible. It's the absolute foundation of the entire food chain. So I'll leave you with a final thought to, chew on. We tend to think of factories as these massive, sprawling buildings, right? But what if the most important, the most productive, and the most life-giving factories on our entire planet were actually completely invisible?